this. So, I've told a couple people that if you hear of somebody who needs to know that, let them know, and then I'll send this out probably in a week or so. And if you're so excited you want to listen to it again, hey, you can do that. So I am Amanda Leschuk, Director of College and Career Counseling here at Marymount. And Emily Colby, our librarian, media specialist, technology guru, I call her, is helping me out. So she's going to kind of monitor questions, and I told her she's going to have to interrupt me probably because I'll just keep on going. But if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and then Emily, can you still hear me?
Now I can. There was a moment I was muting and I accidentally muted you too. Sorry about
that. Came up and I wanted to make sure. So, okay. So, so welcome. One thing I wanted to let you guys know, this presentation tonight is more, it's more specific than any of my other ones. It's more of the nuts and bolts about how the students get their college application sent out and all that specific process. My hope is that at the end of this, things will make a little bit more sense and you can, you know, breathe a sigh of relief and be like, okay, I think my student will be able to do this and feel good. Obviously, I'm here to help them, you know, all the time. That's not a problem whatsoever. So one thing I'd like to remind people of, just like last year when your student was a junior, if you guys would check your email, my first Friday email went out last Friday, and I do that every other Friday. So here's just a quick glance at it. Whoops. Just so you know what it looks like and kind of what to look for. CCPC communication. And then I have it in little sections. So, you know, if your child is a junior, they won't look at the senior stuff and so on, because it does get rather long, but it's a lot of information. I started doing this last year, kind of the middle of the year, you know, a little according to Mrs. Leschuk thing. So I put in there to try to, it's not all an opinion piece, certainly. There's definitely some facts that back it up, but just like to have that in there for you guys as well. Okay, now Emily, how do I go back to my PowerPoint? Maybe I just go get it down here.
You got it.
Okay. Wanted to let you guys know that our seniors do very, very well. There's some statistics in the packet if you downloaded it yet. I said this a little bit, I think, earlier, but Dr. Renner sent an email about 3:00 p.m. today with this whole the whole packet of information. So whenever you get a chance and you want to download that. But our students do very well with the college application process, and I give them a lot of credit. They work very hard. Last year, 81% of our seniors' applications were accepted at 107 different institutions. So a couple things about that, 107 different colleges and universities. I love that because that means our kids are applying all over the place. Certainly, UC, Miami, and Ohio State are what I call our big three, almost for obvious reasons. You know, they're not too far away, and they're phenomenal schools. So I'm not surprised by that. I kind of expect that every year. But our kids they don't seem to be afraid to apply to other places, which I think is awesome. 81% of their applications are accepted. I'll be honest with you, I almost wish that were lower. It's fine, but I definitely want our students to stretch themselves if they choose to do that. You know, if they choose to apply to all schools that are good fits for them academically and they get into all of those schools, that's great. But I don't ever want one of our students to say, well, I don't think I'm going to apply here because I'm not sure I would get in. I would, you know, always want to help them with that. That is not a problem. So make sure your students are in charge of this process, but you can help them. You know, our students need to be, that's one thing I think we could work on with our students in general, is helping them just to be more independent. And I know that's hard with high school kids. I know they're all in a different place and so on. So if you have the magic answer to that balance, you're probably going to be a millionaire. But that, to me, that's what it is. It's just that balance between the friendly nudge, you know, helping your kids get going, but then, you know, stepping back as much as you can and so forth. I think I put this on an email this summer. One way I found to do this that works really well is have your student write the email, but maybe ask them to BCC you or even to copy you. And that way you know if and when it's been sent. And that sometimes helps out a little bit as well. I routinely connect with Marymount High School alums and try to just constantly gauge get their help. You know, what did Marymount do well? What did you guys need that we didn't do, and so forth. And this is a quote from one of our recent graduates that I really, really liked. I thought he really hit it. I think he's a sophomore in college right now. And he said, you know what, Mrs. Lischuk, time management is what separates the good students from the best students. So that's like my new quote. And I love that it's from a Marymount student. So time management is huge. Again, anything you can do to help your students with that, I think would be great. And I also wanted to make just a quick comment that I've been reading a lot recently, the last couple of years, about how we live in a very non-trusting society, and there's just a lot of misinformation out there. So I would just encourage you, if you have questions, please contact me, have your student contact me. I'm always going to tell you guys the truth or find out the truth. And I can talk with college admissions reps, you know, if I'm not sure about the answer, and try to get that. I've been working in this arena for many, many years, 24, I'll tell you that. And I've been at Marymount for 16 now. So I really love helping our students find their career interests and their college fit. And it's just great. So any way I can help, I'm always happy to do that. Now, Emily, I'm trying to advance my slide and it doesn't want to. Oh, maybe I have to do this thing on the bottom. There we go. And I apologize as you listen. I do kind of talk to myself through this presentation with the technology. So college and career planning services. If your students attended the workshops this summer and listened to the videos I sent out in August, I think they would be in pretty good shape. I know all kids have not done that. So again, I'm here to help them. I'm currently meeting with small groups of seniors and helping them with how to request their transcripts and rec letters, explain the application process to them, and so on. And I'll show you guys more of that in a minute. Even when we meet, I always tell them this is not a one and done meeting. They are welcome to follow up with me individually for any kind of private questions or concerns, or just to say, hey, can you show me that again? No problem. That's no big deal. I'm happy to do that. Typically, I tell students, don't spend more than about 15 minutes trying to figure something out. This, like, you know, nuts and bolts procedures. If they're starting to get frustrated, tell them to come see me or email me or whatever, and I'm happy to help them. This time of year especially, I kind of do this so much, I'm dreaming about it, so I'm happy to help them out. I do want to take a minute to explain the three main parts of the college application process, because I think this can help make it seem a little bit more manageable. Everything, of course, is electronic. So in general, what happens is a student's going to work on their application. Many, many times it's the common application, but at any rate, whatever application they're using. And it includes, of course, the essay, many parts to it, the fee, and so forth. But that is one major part of this whole college application process. So what happens is when they send their application into, we'll say Miami University, Miami gets that application and they start an electronic file for that student. Then pretty soon the student asks me, or maybe at the same time, they ask me to send in their transcript, probably a letter of recommendation, and then there's a few forms that I have to do for that. So I do ask the students to give me at least 3 weeks to do that. And that is when they fill out the pink form, and they do that in SCORE. And again, I'll show you those details in a minute. So that's kind of like the second part. When Miami University gets that, they then add that to that student's file, you know, out in the cloud, so to speak. And then the third piece, and this piece is a little bit different this year. Typically, it's students sending ACT and or SAT scores. Those are optional this year with many schools, not all, but many, many schools have gone test optional because, of course, of COVID and so forth. So once the university gets those 2 or 3 parts of the application, they have matched it up in the electronic file for, you know, Amanda Leschuk or whatever. Then they kind of move it over to the admissions people and they say, okay, we've got a complete application for this student from Marymount. you guys can start to evaluate him or her. That is, it's important they get that, and they will. It's very important they get all those pieces by the deadline. Most schools anymore will not bend if a student misses a deadline. They are strict on that. So I really kind of try to harp on those deadlines, and that's definitely something that parents can help their students with. Because it's an electronic file, most likely those 3 parts are not going to get there on the same day, and it doesn't matter what gets there first. So, I keep telling the students, give me 3 weeks to send your transcript. There's 132 seniors, I think, and one of me, and that's okay. I'll get that done. But if they give me 3 weeks, I can definitely get it done. If by chance I send their transcript before the student completes their application and submits it, no big deal. Doesn't really matter. All that stuff, again, gets put in that file for Wendy Warrior, my fake student or whomever, and then they'll start to look at it. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that that can help you feel maybe a little bit better about the whole process, and kind of like, get a picture of it in your head and so forth. Just some basics of college applications. How many applications should students send? Really whatever they want to. The average at Marymount is 5. And so I've been giving seniors 5 of these pink papers, because they have to turn in a pink paper for every college application. And again, I'll show you that in a minute. But in general, what most college counselors will recommend is that students apply to 1 or 2 highly likely schools, meaning it's likely that the student gets in. Another way to look at this, and again, it may sound a little weird because everybody's not using test scores this year, but students can still use that kind of as a little bit of a benchmark. So if my ACT score or SAT is higher than the middle 50% of that school, then that's a little bit more on the highly likely side. Much better chance I'm going to get in. Students many times send 1 or 2 applications to what we call a reasonable fit for them. So that's probably where their scores are in that middle 50%. And then 1 or 2 reach or stretch schools where the students' scores are actually lower than the middle 50%. And I'm a big proponent of doing that. I think Marymount students are the types of students that get into those reach schools. Our kids are phenomenal. They have a lot to offer. And I just think if they want to go for it, they should absolutely go for it. If students or you have a hard time finding the middle 50% of those scores, let me know. I can help you with that. They're not always right out there, but anyway, I can help you with that. And just to give you an idea, typically University of Cincinnati's middle 50% on the ACT is about a 24 to a 29. And Marymount's average ACT is 25 to 26. So again, UC is obviously a good fit for many of our students. Ohio State, you probably know, is a little bit higher, more like 27 to 31 is their middle 50%. And Miami is usually about 26 to 31. So again, very broad averages, but at least you can kind of get an idea of, kind of where you are in that ballpark. I do think the key to getting accepted at that stretch school is to be a good fit for that school. So the students really need to demonstrate to the college that they are more than their great GPA and their great curriculum and test scores and so forth. That they have done some research and they're going to be a good fit because of, sometimes it's athletics, sometimes they've got the major that just totally matches with them and so forth. And again, I can help students with that if they want me to. How far do students go away from school? A lot of them stay fairly close, actually. 54% of students stay within 100 miles of their home. 32% of students go from 100 to 500 miles away. And then only about 14 students will go more than 500 miles away. And that's totally up to you, your student and you guys, whatever you are comfortable with. I did want to remind everybody about early decision, early action, and so on. Remember ED, or early decision, and there's a handout in your packet about this. That's the one that is binding. So if your child applies early decision, they have to sign off on a form and score, type their name. You will have to as well, and then so do I. So you really can't do it by mistake. I will go to that student and say, remember, ED, early decision, means if you get into that school, you are going. Like, you can't back out, really. There is one little caveat of, if financial aid doesn't work out and so forth, but it's not great really to apply to ED unless you're pretty much all in. And again, I can always talk with students or you individually about that. Early action is not binding. So your students really, unless something really, really, really crazy happens, they really need to meet those early action deadlines. It can make a little bit of a difference. And some schools will basically require that. The way I tell students, if you apply early action, it's kind of like being at the front of the line. So you're going to get looked at first for admissions, scholarships, that more competitive engineering program, nursing program, all that sort of thing. So make sure that they do strive to meet that early action deadline. And like I said, some schools require that for those particular programs as well. Deciding where to apply. At this time of year, I'm hoping that students have at least a good handle on where they want to apply. I'm hoping they did a lot of research last year. I know it got a little probably cut off with COVID, and some of the visits maybe you planned, didn't work out and so forth. They can score our new platform, which replaced Naviance. It really, truly is phenomenal and so easy to use. So hopefully they can show you that, or I can help them with that as well. And I can give you more of a demonstration, especially at the end if people want to stay on to show you how that works a little bit more. Also, college reps are coming here they're coming here to Marymount virtually to visit with us. And we've had a few already, and it's not bad. I'd rather have them here in person, but it's certainly better than nothing. And they do a nice job. So let me go ahead and show you that real quick. So this is what SCORE looks like for your students. This is Wendy Warrior's account. Wendy Warrior's my fake student. So this is just, exactly like what they would see. If they come down here, scroll down on the right, and this again is just the home page, they can see what schools are coming up. So tomorrow, for example, we have University of Richmond, and there's a couple more tomorrow, Maryville, and University of Tampa. And then there's more. And then if they want to see a whole list, they go up here to the menu bar and click on events and deadlines. And these are all the schools coming so far. And colleges keep signing up. They sign up directly in SCORE. And so, we just add that. So you guys can look at this, later tonight or this weekend with your child and, see who's coming and so forth. We also put it on the announcements. And so, students can look at that as well. And you guys, if you sign up for announcements, you can always see who's coming, like in the next couple days and so forth. See if I can get back to my PowerPoint. Yay, okay. I just was on a webinar yesterday with a bunch of Ohio colleges and universities, and I was very excited, kind of surprised, but I just found out that all the Ohio public colleges are offering in-person visits again, except for OU and Ohio State. So other than Ohio University and Ohio State, everybody else is offering in-person visits. So of course you would go to their website to sign up like usual. I definitely would say do that kind of soon. Obviously the visits are going to be very, very limited because they're going to have small groups and so forth. A lot of small private colleges too will offer in-person visits because they always do them in small group anyway. Some of them are even one-on-one. So if you and your student are still like thinking, oh, I wish we could have visited such and such, I would encourage you to go to their website and see if you can still jump on a visit. If they're still virtual, I would tell you seriously on October 16th, the students don't have school. I would plan to sit down with your student and do some virtual visits at some of their colleges. Do your best to try to have the kids do this. I know they don't seem to love it, but they're really not bad. I mean, they're really pretty good virtual visits. here's my other part with it. Sorry, I'm laughing, but if I were on campus, I would go hit, a pizza joint afterwards. So maybe you guys order pizza, maybe that helps them, or maybe even order a t-shirt online from that college, because you maybe would have bought them one in the bookstore. So sorry if I just cost you a few bucks there, but just trying to get these kids, to look at colleges and so forth. And of course, part of that is because of demonstrated interest as well. And just a real quick definition of demonstrated interest. Remember, that's when the more research your student does, colleges really like that, and they can kind of follow that. Of course, with today's technology, they know where they've clicked on their website. They probably know if they've done the virtual visit, and all of that sort of thing. Demonstrated interest really only counts more with these small private schools. An example would be like Denison near Columbus, or Kenyon, or Case Western in Cleveland. Ohio State does not have time, to track that. And nor do the highly selective schools don't either, because they would just get bombarded. So if you guys have questions about that, I can help you with that later as well. Just a little bit about testing, because most of the students have already done that, but yet I know it's a weird year because they didn't exactly all get to that like they probably wanted to. So biggest thing is, if a student is going to send test scores, make sure those test scores reach the school by the application deadline. Students could go on to ACT and SAT websites tonight or this weekend, whenever, and go ahead and get those test scores sent. I do recommend, if they're going to do that, do it sooner rather than later. Come mid-October, those testing companies are working with students from all over the world. They'll have just thousands and thousands and thousands to send. So, definitely get on that sooner rather than later. I mentioned this just briefly before, if the student says, oh, cool, my school is test optional, definitely read the fine print. What I've seen most often is that many of the nursing programs are still requiring test scores. And if a student is an athlete, they will still be required to submit their test scores to NCAA for academic eligibility. Now, I don't know if they'll have to submit it to the school. That's a little bit separate, but definitely to NCAA. If you're not sure, again, ask the student to see me. What I have seen on most of the college's websites is a really nice, thorough set of FAQs around this. So they're pretty helpful about that. I've read lots of articles about it this summer, talked to lots of college reps, and it's kind of interesting. They're almost saying the same thing verbatim, and that is, the student needs to kind of reflect on their test score and think, does this test score represent me well academically? And if it does, and I'm comfortable with it, then I should send that test score. If it doesn't, then obviously they don't have to. I think we're pretty hard pressed to find a school where a 29 or a 30 is not pretty phenomenal. So there's another bit of information to kind of think about when submitting test scores. And then lastly, I told the students, if a student thinks, I don't think my test score was bad, but I was planning to take it one or two more times, and then COVID hit, and life happened, and so on and so forth, and I didn't get to. I'm just not sure it's quite there. Then to me, that might be that student who does not submit the test score. But there's going to be definitely that's definitely a gray area, this year, and I can certainly help students with that. Sometimes students will say, well, if I don't submit my test scores, then how will the college, evaluate me? They're just going to look at everything else. They will not hold it against the students. They do really have to be careful, though. I know, for example, Ohio State, if the student submits it, they will not take it back. I mean, it's in, they're looking at it. Smaller schools, again, sometimes have a little bit more wiggle room, but, I can help students with that. Another thing students can do, general rule of thumb, is larger schools are going to stick to that deadline, whereas sometimes a smaller school will say, meet our application deadline. Let's say it's November 1st, But if you take the ACT after that and do better, go ahead and send it in and we'll look at it. So again, it's kind of an individual college thing, you know, but I'm happy to help students with that. Or again, we can contact the rep to see what they would recommend. Recommendation letters. I did put, yes, I put a handout in your packet about this as well to help students with some of this. In general, students should only ask for one letter of recommendation. It's fairly rare that they will need more than that. And since this entire process is electronic, you know, if they get 2 or 3 rec letters, the computer won't allow me, the system doesn't allow me to upload them and send them. And so I do get upset with the kids sometimes because I'm like, you know, teachers are using their own time on the weekends to do this. Don't make them write a rec letter that I can't even send. If they need or want a counselor letter, they should ask me and I can absolutely talk to them about that. Write them a letter. I have told them, do not ask Mrs. Tackett or Mrs. Zaya. They're super busy with other, you know, responsibilities. However, if they think that those counselors know them better, that's fine. Just tell me and I'll go consult with them and, you know, they'll kind of help me write the letter. That's not a problem at all. But I need to be the one, you know, responsible for that and so forth. The students need to absolutely give their writer 3 weeks to write that letter before the application deadline. So again, if November 1st is the deadline, that's a fairly popular deadline, then it's probably October 10th-ish is when they should be asking, that should be the last day they ask somebody to write them a letter of recommendation and so forth. Students should not expect to see their letter of recommendation. The teacher is going to upload it in SCORE, and then I'll send it with their transcript. Colleges really want the kids to sign off on their common application. There's a thing called FERPA, which is a big law that basically says students' transcripts and all of that is their personal information. So we cannot send that until they click those boxes. If you're worried about that or your students doesn't know what I'm talking about, again, tell them to remind me, I'll show you on Common App, but they can come in and I can help them with that. At any rate, you know, I tell our teachers, if you can't write a positive letter of recommendation for the students, either tell them that or I will, you know, we'll definitely work with your student. That's not a problem. We have great Marymount kids. So, I mean, that's very rare. So anyway, just know that your students are not going to see their letter of recommendation. And that they should give us 3 weeks minimum and only do the amount that they need. And if they're not sure, it shows it on Common App, it shows it on the website, and I can always, again, help the students with that. So SCORE is our new system, like I said, which replaced Naviance. I know it's spelled weird, but it's actually pronounced SCORE. Let me go ahead and show you that. And I'm not sure where my desktop went. It was up there. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. So here is SCORE. Remember before we were looking at these college visits. So I'm going to go back to the home page by clicking on SCORE. There's only these 3 tabs here, super easy. So what the student wants to do is they need to go to the My Colleges tab. If they haven't added any colleges here, these are just schools they're following that they like. They're not committed to, you know, applying to these schools. The other thing I want to mention, sometimes students or parents get worried about is, oh my gosh, are the colleges going to see everything in here? No, nobody sees this SCORE account except me, the student, and, you know, maybe you parents or whatever. It is not tied to Common App or any other application. So what the kids do, let's say they want to apply to, they've been thinking about these schools and they say, oh, I think I want to apply to Harvey Mudd out in California. They just slide this over. Pretty cool, I love that. And then they have to click on, are they applying early decision? Remember, that's binding. Some schools have early decision too. Let's say I'm just doing regular decision. And then they have to say how they apply. Most of the time it's common application, but it could be coalition or at the college website, depending on the school. So I'll click on that. And then they will enter their Common App ID number. I think it's in the upper right-hand corner of their Common App, and I can show you that. And I'm just going to click cancel on that. So what happens when they slide it over here is then it will come up in my score account, in my queue, so to speak, and I'll see, for example, oh, Wendy Warrior's applying to Bowling Green, you know, and hopefully she has given me her pink paper, so I know more details and then I can send that in. The other place on here that's important for students to see is where it says application documents in this blue box. So if we click on that, that is where they put in their teacher rec letter. So they click on request a recommendation. If they just start typing the teacher's name, it'll come up. So you don't even have to know how to spell Leschuk. That's beautiful. In general, kids are not going to request it for a specific college. They're going to request it for every college. And then they can click send. They can type in a message if they want. They really don't have to, because I've told our students over and over, you know, make sure you ask the person in person. That makes a big difference versus just sending them kind of a generic generic email, sorry. Oh, and I'm sorry, Wendy Warrior's a junior, so she's not allowed to request these. But normally you would hit send, and then that would send an email to that person and kind of a heads up. Oh yeah, Wendy Warrior asked me to write that recommendation letter. I'll make sure I get on that. So again, the kids are going to go to My Colleges, slide that over into applying when they've applied, answer those couple of questions. And then up here in application documents is where they put in their rec letter. That's also where the application fee waiver is. If a student is on free and reduced lunch, I would love for them to click, they want a fee waiver. It's completely confidential. I make a couple clicks on my end, and then you know, they don't have to worry about that fee waiver. And since I'm here, I think I'll do a little demo of Common App for you guys. So this is what the Common application looks like. Yeah, right here is the Common App ID number. And this is Wendy Warrior's account, again, my fake student. Students will go to, well, these are the tabs. And then in the Common App tab is kind of the heart of the application itself. They have to fill out these 6 areas. Courses and grades is the 7th area. Not many schools require that. So they might want to wait on that and not fill it out unless they really find that they have to. Really pretty user-friendly. They've improved this a lot over the last few years. So, you know, they type in their name and so on and so forth. This first section, the profile, here's a little bit of a trick or whatever. There's a lot more sections down here. So sometimes the students are like, oh man, I got to do all these. It's really not bad. This whole profile section usually takes students 5 to 10 minutes to do. The family section, if your students haven't talked to you yet about this, I would be, and have it finished, I'd be surprised. If you look down here, you have to fill out information about parent 1 and parent 2. And usually the students get stumped on things like, I don't know what her real, you know, what the occupation is, or exactly what their title is, or where, you know, they went to school or whatever. So you may need to help your students with that part. That's the family part. The education part is, I think, the trickiest one. And so within this section, if students will look at, I'll show you in a minute on their Schoology course, I did Common App step-by-step instructions. And even if all they look at is the education part, I think it will really help them because they have to know, I think they have to spell my name. So spelling Leschuk is difficult for most people, and I get that. They have to, there's just some quirky questions. Like I think it's under grades. They have to know that we are, if they're not reporting class rank, which most students don't, they should say none. We are on a 4-point GPA scale, even though we're weighted. So just little idiosyncrasies like that, like I said, that I wouldn't, you know, expect the students to always know. The honors section is where the kids can put in up to 5 honors. So things like Wendy Warrior was Algebra 2 Student of the Year. I guess she only did 1 honor. And it's okay, you don't have to have 5. So, so just different things like that. Testing section. If the student is not going to report test scores and they answer no here, which is fine, they're done with that section. If they're putting in their test scores, they'll answer yes. And as you can see with Wendy Warrior, then they'll ask you which tests you've taken and so forth. The activities section, the students can put into up to 10 activities. And again, they do not need to have 10. Colleges tell us all the time, they'd rather see kids have 3 or 4 activities where it's, deeper involvement and so forth. And then a lot of this is, drop down menus and so forth. Wendy Warrior was on the cricket team. She was captain of the cricket team. What years you participated, hours spent, and so on. Community service would go here, all of that sort of thing. The writing section actually does not take very long if the student has completed their essay, because basically they're going to cut and paste their essay. So they will see here, as you can see, when you bring this up, these are the colleges that Wendy Warrior has on her list that require the essay. These schools, the essay is not required, but you can still add it. And I would encourage students to do that. They're going to click on the question that they answered, the prompt. They're going to cut and paste their essay. And I hope it is a lot more exciting than Wendy Warrior's boring essay. That's my little joke for the night. Minimum 250 words, maximum 650. And then they're going to answer some disciplinary questions. And then this additional information section, I wanted to point out, this is kind of cool this year. They did put in a little question about COVID-19. And, if it really, messed up your life and so on and so forth. Do you wish to share anything on this topic? If you answer no, that's totally fine. If it truly was, a lot happened to the student, your family, whatever, they are welcome to answer yes and talk about that. And then the other question is, do you wish to provide details of circumstances or qualifications not reflected in the application? What I tell students here in general is if you finish this whole huge common application and at the end, maybe you feel a little cheated and you're thinking, but I never got to tell them about whatever, this really cool mission trip I went on, or this thing or that thing, or I want to talk about my learning style. And I want to share that I'm ADHD or on an IEP. That's totally up to the student. They can do that if they want to. This is a great place too to explain grades. If you had mono one semester and your grades took a dip and you want to talk about that, you could absolutely do that here. And again, tell the students I'm happy to read what they write or help them with this or whatever, or help them choose whether or not they want to share that. That's up to them.
Mrs. Leschek?
Yes.
I've had a couple questions from the audience. One is, could you please revisit the GPA section, weighted or unweighted, and which cumulative GPA to use?
Yes. GPA, technically the kids could use either, but in general, we always have them use their weighted. On their transcript, both are listed, weighted and unweighted. So I think they should use their cumulative weighted. And like I said, that's on their transcript. If they need their transcript, I'm in the process of giving that to them at these small group meetings. But if they need it, sooner, just tell them to stop in and see me.
Okay, next question. How do we get to the Common App, and how can I find out if my child has already started it?
Good question. I'm going to jump over here to Schoology for a second. As you guys know, Schoology replaced Blackboard, and I've been kind of bugging the seniors as I meet with them, and I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing on Schoology? And they seem to be doing pretty well. They act like they kind of have, they're getting a handle on it. Every student should be enrolled in this course. It's called CCPC and Counseling Information. So they would go to that Schoology course, and back up a second here. Oh, I hope I didn't just mess that up. Oh, good. Okay. So this is what it looks like when they go on to their CCPC Schoology course. It's basically a list of all the handouts that I would ever give a student. I tell them my philosophy is I'm always happy to help them, but if they're home on a Saturday afternoon and trying to do this, I don't want them to be frustrated. So what they're going to do this year for almost all this college stuff is right here. It's in all caps, college application process and forms. If they click on that, then they can go to, and I referenced this earlier, let's see, common application instructions. And they can click on that. It's a PDF. Now, I do warn you, it's about 5 pages, but again, I would rather be more thorough, so than not. But if the student just goes to whatever section they're working on, I think they would get help. In the very beginning of this, it tells kids how to get an account, but it's basically commonapp.org, and they go from there. Students I've worked with rarely have an issue with getting an account or anything like that. But again, I'm always happy to help them.
All right, got a couple more questions. One is, how is the SCORE connected to, or how is SCORE, the Naviance replacement, connected to the Common App?
It is not connected. Good question. It is not connected. So anything that's on that SCORE account, like, it doesn't automatically go into Common App or anything like that. When we send the transcript and rec letter from SCORE, it goes from SCORE directly to the institution. So I hope that helps. And let me go back to SCORE for a second. Let me show you guys. Let me go to my profile and scroll down a bit. Some students, I hope, and if it's hard for the seniors, activities and achievements is, a quasi resume that the kids can fill out. And I do think it's very helpful. I tell the students to do this in a rough draft form. I think is fine because again, nobody sees it, but I think it comes in to be very helpful if you're sitting here working on your common application and you go back over here. My fear is a senior's going to sit there and go, oh my gosh, I don't remember what I did freshman year. And so they could go back here and hopefully they've kept up with this. That's a little bit different with the seniors because they had Naviance last year. So I told them, back then they could either print off their stuff in Naviance or cut and paste it into SCORE or whatever. So I'm not sure what all the seniors did. If they haven't done this yet and they don't want to, they don't have to, but I do think it can be helpful. How are you doing, Emily?
I think, let me see really quick. I think there's 1 or 2 more questions that would be good to ask. Won't the students' GPA change over the next few months? Would they want to wait as long as possible to get the highest GPA?
Oh, good question. GPAs are only updated after the semester. So that will be over the end of January. And by then, they would probably have missed a lot of deadlines. So the students do not want to wait. They want to go ahead and apply now. However, some schools may basically defer them. Wendy Warrior may get an email saying that, Ohio State has deferred her and they want to see her 7th semester grades. What that means is seniors are currently in their 7th semester. So if they get an email like that, they will come to me and I'll show them how to put it in SCORE. But at the end of January, 1st of February, after first semester's over, all those grades are put in and added to the transcript. GPA is, yes, recalculated. Then I will send that updated transcript to whatever schools they need it sent to. Hopefully that makes sense.
Man, there's so many good questions coming in. To confirm, the only thing sent to the colleges from SCORE is their grades then?
We send the transcript. There's a form I fill out that does have the student's GPA on it and just some kind of generic, some information about Marymount. If you guys look at the packet, it's one of the last pages. It's called our profile. It's kind of Marymount's brag sheet, and it talks about how we have 20 AP courses and all that sort of stuff. and that helps the college to get to know Marymount High School in general. So those are the, and letters of recommendation if a student has any. Those are the items that would be sent from SCORE. This resume is not sent from SCORE. You know, if the kids do the personal bio, that is not sent from SCORE. You know, none of this stuff. So.
We have a question about how to send a super score for ACT.
Oh, another good question. The student would send the 2 or 3 ACT test dates, which contain those scores. So for example, let's say in March, math was their highest, and in June, English was their highest. And those are the 2 they want to send. They would have to send both of those particular ACT tests to whatever particular schools they want to send them to. And they would go into their ACT account. So that's actstudent.org. Log into their account, and usually students do okay with it, but if they need help, I can help them. Another thing to remember is when the student took that test back in March and June, if they at that time signed up, they were allowed to put in up to 4 schools to have that score automatically sent to. If they already did that, they do not have to resend it. Then, you know, Kenyon already has that score, or whatever school. If they notice, oh, I sent it to those 4, but I forgot to send it to, you know, to Iowa State, then they have to add that in and then have it sent to Iowa State. There is a charge for that. I want to say it's around $13 per school per test. But again, if kids need any help with that, I could help them navigate that.
All right. How is the fee assessed for sending transcripts to colleges?
There is no fee. Marymount does that for free. If you're talking about Marymount, yeah, no fee.
Yay, that's a good answer. Let's see. How far in advance do the transcripts need to be requested in SCORE for an October 15th deadline?
I always tell the kids 3 weeks. 2 weeks, I can probably make it happen, but 3 weeks makes me much happier, especially in the beginning when all these forms have to be uploaded and all that sort of thing. After that, it definitely gets quicker. If a student is in a bind, you know, tell them to come see me. I even work on wiping the scowl off my face, and I'll help them out. I can stay late and send a transcript, but if they miss the college deadline, then they're just kind of cooked, you know, with that college. So they need to really make sure they don't miss their application deadline. But yeah, shoot for definitely 3 weeks before, and then we shouldn't have any issues whatsoever.
I think I missed a question earlier. Could you please show us or talk more about that pink form? What is it, and where does my student get an extra one if they're applying to more than 5 schools?
Pink form is in your packet. Let me see if I can bring it up.
The packet, just to recap, is the one that Dr. Renner sent out around 3 today?
Correct.
Okay.
I thought I put it up here, and now I don't. Now I don't see it. Shoot. Yeah, I don't see it on my desktop, so I'm not going to go searching for it right now. Sorry. But if the kids need more, oh, it's in Schoology. I can show you in Schoology. If they need more, ta-da, they can get them right here in Schoology. If they print them off at home, they don't have to be printed on pink paper. And they can always stop into the CCPC, and I will be happy to give them one. So here it is. It's a lot of instructions, but I tell the students, you know, before you roll your eyes, I understand. Again, remember, Mrs. Lestruck's philosophy is if you're at home on a Saturday afternoon and you forget how to do this, you know, if you read through everything, you probably could do it. So it's just name, college they're applying to, application deadline, are you applying early action, early decision, or whatever. To be honest with you, part of this checklist is also a reminder for the students. One thing I love about SCORE, they have these videos that if the kids click on this video and go to the 9:30 marker, literally in 30 seconds, they show them how to do it. And it's like just so helpful, so easy. They write down who's writing them a letter of recommendation. That's a nice kind of second check for me to kind of be able to watch for that. And that way, if I need to go to a teacher, I can do that and so on. And then the back is just, again, talking about the different application processes and so forth, different deadlines and everything. So pink form for every school. The other thing that some kids are getting caught on is there is a green form, and I color code them just because I think it helps us to remind students of that. And the green form is also in your packet. That's the transcript permission form. And again, I'm giving these to all the students as I see them. I've probably got a good third of these turned in, maybe even more. This is a form, though, that you parents have to sign as well. It's permission to release the transcript in school records. So we can't legally do that without your signature. So student name, your signature, student signature, and so on. And then do not sign down here unless the student wants their class rank on their transcript. And I can always help students with that. Typically, it's the top 5 to 10% of students who will do that. Not very many other kids usually want it on there. And that's fine. The colleges don't expect it anymore. Very few schools use class rank. So that's okay. They don't have to worry about that.
I have a couple questions about letters of recommendation. So one is, how does my student send a recommendation letter from someone outside of Marymount High School if the college requires it?
Oh, good question. The best way to do that would be to ask that person to email it to me as a PDF. And then there is a spot in SCORE where I can upload it for them. And then that outsider doesn't have to worry about SCORE and all of that stuff. I'm happy to do that for them.
I have another one related. I accidentally requested a rec letter inside of the Common App in addition to SCORE. Do I need to delete that in Common App?
Yes, please. That will help. In Common App, the student should only list our names, not our emails, because we're going to send it via SCORE, not Common App. They should be able to go back in there and fix that. And again, if they have an issue with that, tell them to come see me. I can help them.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to make sure I'm catching all these. Why and when would a university ask for 7th semester grades?
Good question. Let's see. It would be, it just kind of depends on the year. They are looking at their entire applicant pool. And if the applicant isn't quite up to par, basically, with what they want to see, they would, want to check senior year grades. Another instance would be, I talked to a student the other day, and I think it was junior year, maybe. It was either sophomore year or junior year. They had a dip in their grades. And I warned this student, I said, and then they came up and they did really, really well. And I said, this looks great. I think the colleges are going to be cool with this. You've improved. You've showed obviously that you can do it. That's what they're looking for. But they may want a little more reassurance. So they may say, hey, we're going to defer you for a little bit. We want to see 7th semester grades. And that's why we really need to be on those seniors to keep working. This is not a vacation. They need to definitely do well this year. Colleges also, I like to remind students, unfortunately, that and it's rare, but they can rescind in their admission and or scholarship. And they can do this for a variety of reasons, from grades falling, and you may have seen this in the news, to looking at social media accounts. I think Harvard rescinded a few years ago when people made some really nasty racist comments on social media and stuff. So they watch for that, and they don't want those types of people on their campus. So they just watch for that. So just be careful with that.
You have a question about where is the class rank listed?
Class rank is not on the student's transcript. If they want to know that and check on that, they can email me or come see me. I'll let them know, and then they can make that decision whether or not they want to add it on their transcript for their colleges. Again, since most students don't want it on there, we take it off, and then we're a little bit, that feels a little bit safer than, you know, making an error the other way. So.
I have a couple ACT related questions. Does the ACT student site list the colleges you have already sent to?
Yes. Yeah, when you go into send and you click on like the March test, the 4 schools that you put in originally, if you did that, they'll come up. And so again, if they're listed, you're done. Don't send them to those schools again. They're good.
Do you have to submit an ACT or SAT to qualify for scholarships since it isn't required?
Read the fine print, but at most schools, no. I'm trying to think. Well, in fact, I haven't seen anywhere you have to, because the colleges, that would look very bad on them. So they're not doing that from what I've seen. I will tell you, some schools want test scores for their honors and scholars programs. So that's one to kind of look out for. But no, in general, test optional means test optional.
Someone made a comment that 7th semester grades are also important for merit scholarship consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Related to our 7th semester grades conversation. Does the ACT have a super score form so you don't have to send it several in?
Nope. Unless they did something new that I haven't seen yet, but I don't believe so. Sorry. They we kind of criticize them as a money-making machine sometimes. So they make a lot of money off of that, unfortunately.
All right. 2 more. What is the advantage of applying early acceptance?
Early action, just, you know, again, the way I think about it, you're at the front of the line, so to speak. And usually the deadlines are not ridiculously early. You know, they're in November, sometimes December 1st. I think Miami and UC are both December 1st this year, early action. Yeah, but I mean, by then I think the kids are ready to apply. It's not the worst thing in the world if you miss that. You certainly can still apply to those universities. But again, watch the fine print, because I know like at UC, let me think, at UC, they probably want engineering, nursing, honors and scholars. They have a special medical program. And a lot of times DAP and like their theater arts, all there's, you know, obviously they're more highly selective and competitive programs. They typically want, and they'll tell you, you need to meet that early action deadline. It's just best overall, for sure.
All right, I see one about, can a parent see in SCORE which schools their student has applied for?
Yeah, because if you go to SCORE, I just flipped back over there, ask your student to see my colleges, and in the applying column, this does not mean they actually applied. This means they gave me a heads up to send the transcript, and they said they're applying, you know, but I don't really know until, you know, they've applied. They can also slide it over here when they've submitted it. But again, that's all student run. Actually, your safer bet would be to look in Common App and look in your Common Application to see when your student has sent. And you would go to My Colleges, and let's say they're applying to Bowling Green. They're going to do these questions that are specific just to Bowling Green. They would click on those and do those. This is the recommenders in FERPA stuff that we briefly mentioned before, and then review and submit Common App. If this is checked green, then they've applied. The other key is once they go through this part right here, towards the end of it, they are probably going to ask you to borrow your credit card to pay for the application fee. That is a big hint. Once they put that fee in, it's probably like 2 more clicks and they've applied, it's done. So I always tell the kids, don't put the credit card in until you're really, really for sure. There are some free applications out there, but not a whole lot. So this is looking at Common App is probably the best way that you can see that. Okay, I am going to go back to my PowerPoint and just run through a few last slides here. But go ahead and keep your questions coming, and then I'll answer more, at the end. Coalition application, not many students use that. There were 8 Ohio schools, and Ohio State just recently opted out of it. So pretty rare, and there's a handout in your packet about that. If your child's doing coalition, it's a little bit different, but it's doable. Again, I'm happy to help them with that. Completing the applications, let's see. I showed you Common App, so that's all good. Talked about the step-by-step instructions. I think that is really helpful. Let me put a quick plug in for these extra essays. If a particular college has extra essays, more than just the big Common App essay, try to help your student with their stamina for writing. They get many times tired, and I understand that. There's something called the Why Us essay. And so sometimes schools will say, why do you want to come here, basically? Why are you dying to be a Wolverine at the University of Michigan? That needs to be very specific to the University of Michigan. Or, it just kind of shows the student hasn't done their homework, and they're not as serious about it. So that would be something to definitely help the students with, or just make sure they understand that's very important. Like I said, they're getting tired and they're at the end, and that could actually, I think, make or break somebody's application. Again, really watch those deadlines. I think I mentioned Miami and UC are December 1st for early action. Ohio State is November 15th. November 15th for early action. And Ohio State wants that also for engineering, their scholarships, and their honors and scholars programs. So definitely get on that one as well. And we talked about how to look up deadlines and so forth. But if they have, questions, I can help them with that, or if they can't find it. After applying, you know what? It kind of gets hard for the students. It's kind of funny. Well, it's not funny, but anyway, they come in, they're all excited. They have finished their applications. They're ready to put their feet up and watch Netflix, and they deserve it. That's awesome. But then about 2 weeks later, they come in and they're like, I don't know what to do now, because now I'm getting nervous and whatever. So it's hard. They have to be patient. And I will warn you, and if you can remember to warn your students, be careful at things like Thanksgiving dinner, when the grandparents or the aunts and uncles are over and they're like, hey, how are those college applications coming? Have you gotten accepted anywhere yet? It can be kind of stressful. So maybe, kind of help your student with that. I know our relatives mean well, but they also don't know and understand, most of them, what it's like today. It's definitely different than it was, a few years ago. So we talked about definitely keeping your grades up. Watch that social media presence again, and make sure you don't double deposit. And we'll go over that more as the year goes on, but kids have to decide, they're supposed to decide by May 1st, so we've got plenty of months here, where they're going, and then they make that deposit by May 1st. Do not deposit to 2 schools. They can't go to 2 schools, so they shouldn't deposit at 2 schools, and it just makes life more complicated. It makes Marymount look bad, makes me look bad, so please don't do that. Scholarships, on my Friday email, I put a Google Doc that we'll continue to add to throughout the year, any kinds of scholarships we hear about, so students can look at that. The net price calculator, which is on every college's website, can be very helpful as well for financial aid and sometimes scholarships. Again, students have got to check their email. I had a student, it's been a number of years ago, but he missed thousands of dollars in a scholarship because he applied to the school and they basically said, we think you're a great candidate. Why don't you fill this out and take all the scholarship money? And he never read his email. So kids really have to watch their email. And then of course, in March, I will help them with the local scholarships. So we have about 25 of those. So love this community. You guys are so generous and fabulous and really help our students out with that. Financial aid, yes, yes, please apply for the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. Everyone should apply unless you're totally a millionaire and you really, really don't want any financial aid. Really good thing to come to, or actually it's going to be virtual again. September 21st, we're going to have a speaker from University of Cincinnati who works in their financial aid office. That person knows the FAFSA forwards and backwards, and they will absolutely help us. So if you can come on that night, I think that will be helpful for you. The FAFSA opens on October 1st, so don't start before then because it's like the wrong year. You'll get all the details that night, but just so you know, it might feel weird, but you're going to be applying for the 21-22 school year. So that's the FAFSA you're going to fill out because that's the year, you know, your child's going to be a freshman in college. And you're going to use your tax data from 2019. So your taxes are probably already done. All that's probably really good to go. But if you could come on the 21st, you'll hear some more information about that, and that will be helpful. And again, don't miss those deadlines. There might be a couple December 1st. A lot of those deadlines, though, are more like January, February for the FAFSA and so forth. So you'll hear more about that. Just a few concluding thoughts. I really, really, really want kids to only apply to schools that they would be happy to attend. So you'll notice way early in the presentation, I talked about highly likely schools. I didn't use the term safety school. It's not horrible, but it kind of has that connotation. I don't want a student to say, well, I'm only applying to that school and I would only go there if that's the only school I got into. I'm like, well, you don't sound very excited about it. You know, why are you applying there? There's over 3,000 schools in this country, and I really believe we can get good schools that your child likes at you know, all ends of the academic spectrum and so forth. Oh, the Vanderbilt rep today reinforced this. I loved it. She said, we are trained to look for things and reasons to admit students, not to deny them. So I love that. They're the Office of Admissions, not the Office of Denial. So essay. I think that is going to be definitely a key factor this year, especially for these schools who are test optional. I think they're going to take a second look at that essay. So really make sure your students putting a lot of time into that. There's a save the date handout in your packet as well for more, you know, informative programs throughout the year, the financial aid night. October 7th. Oh, I think this is going to be great. Peter Van Buskirk is coming. He was here about 5 years ago, and he is the former dean of Franklin and Marshall College. Oh man, he's been doing this forever and knows everybody, and he will give us some really great, I think, feedback about the whole application process and just kind of how to help our students and so forth. And then lastly, don't forget, they're also seniors, so I like to mention cap and gowns. Herf Jones will be doing a virtual meeting with us probably in the next few weeks or month. And so we'll send your student home with a big packet where they can order their cap and gown, which I hope they get to wear this year. That's all I'm going to say. I hope we have graduation and life gets back to normal. Also at that meeting, we will give them a little card with their name on it. And that's the way we have it in our file. So whatever, they're going to initial it and say, yes, this is spelled correctly and so forth, or they're going to correct it. And that's what their diploma is going to read. So kind of keep in touch with your students on that as well with regard to cap and gown. What other questions do we have, Emily?
All right, we have here's one that I think other people may have experienced. Our student has had their ACTs canceled 3 times since the school test. Will an October test date make it in time for submission to most deadlines?
I think so. Fingers crossed. I do know Ohio State, and Ohio State is they're pretty picky about this. They did tell us the other day that October 24th is the last ACT that they would accept. And so if your student can't get it in by then I would say they should go test optional, but hopefully they do. And hopefully, you know, they're okay with that score and so forth. And I can help a student look up any specific colleges, if they're concerned about that. Also, again, looking at a college's website and the FAQs around that, I think could be really helpful.
I have one on the colleges that my student is applying to do not offer early decision or early action. Is it still preferable to send the application in early?
Yes, within reason. They don't have to send it in next week, but I tell students to kind of shoot again for that November 1, December 1 kind of goal. If it's a rolling admission, to a certain degree, scholarships and financial aid will be handed out on a first come, first served basis somewhat, but again, don't like panic about that. But I wouldn't encourage them to apply in March, So again, November, December within reason.
Say the first time that they took the ACT, they did not do as well as they thought they would, but they automatically sent the scores. Then that school is test optional. If you click don't use scores, will they still look at the scores that were automatically sent?
Probably about 99% of them will not look at that score. We were talking about that the other day. Well, and I'll be honest, I didn't hear one school who said they would look at it. So I think they're fine. For most schools, I think what they're going to do is on the common application under that testing section, that's where they're going to take it. So if the student answers no, I'm not submitting test scores, then they will not look at it. If they say yes, then of course they will.
Where would you include athletic information if this might help the student's chance of getting into a school? Is the athletic stuff done separately?
Let's see. They could definitely put, like in activities, the student could list, what activity or what athletics they've been in and so forth. If they're considering playing a sport at school and thinking that will help them, then they need to be in touch with the coach. Something else they can do, and all these schools are a little bit different, but they typically will have I forget what they call it, but like an information form on their website. So if you wanted to play, football at Case Western, they probably on their website have some kind of like recruiting form that the student can fill out, and then sometimes the coach will contact them or the student can contact the coach. It's a little bit different for every school. It's not necessarily on the application. Yeah, I would say that's kind of a separate process, but I'd be happy to talk to that person to make sure I'm understanding their question correctly too.
And we have a member of the audience has chimed in to say you are correct. If they want their application to be supported for athletics, they need to be in touch with a coach. And I would say also maybe even Mr. Knurl could be a valuable resource there too.
Yes, good point, Emily. Thank you.
I have someone who asked, I was a few minutes late and I may have missed it. Where do we get the packet? It's a question of the day.
Dr. Renner sent it out via email about 3:00 this afternoon. Yep, so you should have an email with it attached.
And your student would be able to find it at the bottom of that CCPC Schoology course too.
I didn't put the packet there, but the pink
that was just
form.
the green form and the pink form.
Yes. Yeah.
I was not paying close enough attention. Don't listen to me. I think there's one more question. Does Mrs. Lestrick, do you see the Students Common app before it goes out to the school?
In general, I do not. If a student wants me to look at it, I'm happy to do that. But it's up to them to show me. I will show you guys something real quick that's kind of cool. If I can get my Common App back. Yeah, here it is. When you go, okay, so remember we're back on Common App. It's under My Colleges. When you go to review and submit Common App, it asks you a few questions here. I tell the kids, make sure they're reading through all this and so forth. But I love this part. Notice this is the whole Common App as a PDF. It says preview across it. But this is much easier, I think, to proofread than going back through all those, check boxes and clicking things and drop down menus and whatever. So they can review the whole PDF. In fact, it makes them click that I have reviewed the PDF before they can, go on to submission. So you as parents, I think that would be an awesome thing for you guys to help with, to look for spelling errors or whatever. The other thing I tell students, and I'll tell you parents, I know sometimes this gets hard and it gets stressful and so forth. And sometimes, I know teenagers roll their eyes and whatever. If you need to take a break from it, or if it's just not great, stress to your student to come see me. I will absolutely help them. I'll be the independent third party. Or if you say, hey, Amanda, can you really try to see my student in the next few weeks about this? They're just not wanting to share a whole lot with me. I can certainly do my best in that kind of situation as well. Any other questions?
One last, oh wait, two more. You mentioned the September 21st presentation. Someone wanted to know if it was going to be recorded. They definitely want to attend, but they have a conflict.
I think so. I have to double check with my UC person, but usually they're pretty cool about that. So if I can record it, I absolutely will. Yeah.
Okay, I have, this is a great question, I think, to end on. Do you think this year will be harder for our students to get acceptances given that all the 2020 grads who deferred?
Good question. All the webinars I've been on so far with the colleges are saying no. They have said that they did not want to cheat, this class, or make it a lot harder for them and so forth. For the most part, I tend to believe them. I really do. The colleges work very hard to try to make things even. I will say, though, with that said, things are, they ebb and flow naturally anyway from year to year. A few years ago, I won't mention the school, but they came in and they said, I called them up and I said, why didn't you accept my fabulous student? And they said, well, it's a lot harder this year because we over enrolled by like 400 or 600 kids the year before or something. So they do their best. They study numbers like crazy. They try to make it very even. They usually do, but they also have, flukes in there as well. So I'm optimistic that our students are going to be okay. I really am. But at the same time, I would always say that the students need to be turning in very, very, very good, applications and essays and so forth. I just want our kids to represent themselves the best they can because they're awesome students and, they're just so worthy of being accepted that I want it all to go well for them. So, well, I think we're wrapping it up. So if you parents have other questions, again, feel free to email me, call me. I'm happy to help you guys send your student in, whatever works. I'm here for you guys. So happy to help. Thank you so much for joining us. Anything else, Emily?
I think we got every question.
Ooh, you rock. Oh, and a big thank you, bravo, Emily, for all your help. I really appreciate it. I could not have read all those questions and done all this.
Hey, I'll just say, I have a junior in high school myself. This is all useful information to me.
Oh, good. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.